If you're still running discovery the same way you did 12 months ago, you're already behind. And the worst part is you probably don't even realize it yet. Because right now there's a small group of closers quietly adapting to how buyers actually think in 2026, while everyone else is still following scripts, memorizing objection handling, and wondering why deals feel harder than what they used to. Here's what's really happening. High ticket sales is entering a completely new era. Most closers won't see it coming until they're replaced by somebody who actually sees it coming. Now, I know this because I spend all day at the cutting edge of high ticket sales. I've closed over $8 million across 7,000 sales calls, and I've trained hundreds of closers, and I'm starting to see a shift in the patterns that aren't obvious to the average salesperson, but they're a massive opportunity if you know what to look for. So over the next 20 minutes, I'm gonna walk you through the 6 biggest high ticket sales shifts happening right now. Not 2 years, not eventually, right now. And I'll break down both the strategy and the exact tactics you can use to adapt before your competition does. Because here's the reality. If you catch these shifts early, you'll close so many more deals that people actually think you're doing something illegal. Let's actually dive into it. So the very first shift that I'm seeing, and that really every single person I work with that we're really focused on, is we're getting out of the mentality of just like script-based selling, just follow the next question on the script, and more actually understanding on a deeper level the why behind each question that you ask, the outcomes you're looking to get, but most importantly, what are you actually trying to shift? So we need to get out of like, hey, just script based, just trying to get to some, emotion, and we need to get to identity. Identity is going to be the highest level that you can get to in sales that gets somebody to move. And we'll dive in a little bit to that later, but understand why script-based selling is actually dying. So if you're relying on it in 2026, here's what you're actually saying. Like, I don't understand psychology well enough to have a real conversation. And people can tell that. Understand that this space, high ticket sales, is getting more and more competitive as the day goes along. And the AI and everything is causing a lower barrier to entry into the space. So buyers today have been on much more sales calls than they have in the past. They were skeptical before, but now with AI, you don't even know what reality is. They're much more skeptical now. So the traditional tactics, again, they smell that shit from a mile away. If you're following a script, they can smell that. They see you as a salesperson. If they see you as a salesperson, the value that you give them is much lower. They don't see you as somebody who actually wants to help them. And then traditional pressure tactics is going to create just more buyers remorse and refunds. So you can use these tactics, and sometimes they will get people across the line. They won't get a high percentage across the line, but of the people you do get across the line, the likelihood that you're going to get a refund or a chargeback or something like that is just so much higher. Okay, so scripts are a crutch for people who can't read energy and adapt to real time. And worse of all, script-based selling keeps you stuck around 30% close rate, maybe 40%. But if you want to get to the top percent, we need to be closing 60, 70, and even 80% of the people that we're actually talking to. If we're able to do that, it doesn't matter who they put in front of us, who marketing puts in front of us, we're able to close at a higher percent. You're going to be able to survive in this market that is becoming much, much, much more competitive. So how do we actually do that? The new era is selling to identity engineering. You're not trying to convince somebody to buy a product. You're helping them to see that there's a gap between who they are right now and who they actually want to become. This sale happens when they commit to the identity shift, not when they agree with your logic. Okay, so this requires understanding psychology at a level that most closers just don't understand. And that's why this is such a cheat code, because if you understand how human beings work more than most people, then your ability to sell people is going to be much higher. Because at the end of the day, yes, things are getting more competitive, but human beings haven't changed. So if you actually understand how human beings work, you can still close at a very high percentage. The problem is you didn't need to have that understanding of psychology beforehand because it just wasn't as competitive. Now that it's becoming much more competitive, sales tactics, all these different things, they're much more abundant. You see it on Instagram, all this shit. Being able to have real conversations and really identifying what's really going on in the conversation is at a much higher premium. But the problem is with most people, it is much harder to learn it. People don't want to put in hard work. So if you're able to actually put in the little bit of work that it actually takes to learn this stuff, it'll separate you from the pack. So here's what it actually looks like in practice. So instead of asking basic questions like, hey, what are your goals? You need to ask them, hey, who do you need to become to hit those goals? Instead of handling objections with logic, you're addressing identity conflicts. Instead of pitching features and benefits, you're painting a vision of their future identity. So here's the big vision. Every closer needs to become a psychologist first, a salesperson second. If you don't actually understand what moves people, you're going to have a hard time, especially in this environment. You cannot just lean on basic discoveries and that your product is good. There's a lot of products out there. With AI, the ability to actually just come to market is lowered the threshold. So there's so much more competition. It doesn't matter anymore. You need to understand identity. You need to understand the NLP pyramid, and you need to understand how to engineer conversations that pull people towards their future self. This is what will get you to 50K plus per month. Okay. So you have to understand what the NLP pyramid is. That's what this is right here. So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. This is what a lot of the sales tactics are built on. But most people just know the word tracks. They don't actually understand the fundamentals. They don't understand the building blocks that those word tracks, why they even work in the first place. And what happens is when you hear a bunch of word tracks, those word tracks get used out. If they're hopping on a lot of sales calls, they've probably heard what you're saying to them 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 times before. So the issue is we don't really even know what we're doing and why we're doing it. We need to have a better understanding of psychology and how people work. So if you look here, this is a pyramid of the NLP framework, okay? Of like the higher up you go in the NLP pyramid, the higher leverage you actually have. Most people, when they're in a sales conversation, they're just going to be focusing on behavior, which is this orange here, and then skills and competencies, which is the yellow. The issue with that is now that it's becoming more and more competitive and everyone is focusing on that, you're not going to stick out by being able to do that. Again, it's a good entry level understanding of the tactics. If we want to get elite at sales, we need to start understanding beliefs. How do we actually shift beliefs? But at the very top, how do we shift people's identity, how they view themselves? And if we want to become elite at sales, we need to be able to master the highest level, which is going to be identity, how they view themselves now and the future version of themselves that they know they need to be to achieve everything they want. Because Tony Robbins said it best, the strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with how they define themselves. So if we get people to actually commit to becoming the future version of themselves, the strongest force that's going to get them to take action, that is going to create urgency, is to want to stay consistent with how they view the future version. And they'll do everything in their power to go ahead and actually achieve that. So here are some real results that, again, this works for B2B, B2C as well. Keenan went from 6K to 68K per month in 4 months. And then we have Peter here who went from 15K to 47K per month in 3 months. Keenan was selling a B2B offer. Peter was selling a B2C offer. Okay. So it works B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter if you're really able to understand human psychology. And since there's still people at the end of the day, psychology techniques will still work on B2B clients. Okay. That's what you need to understand. So shift number 2, and this really ties into what we were talking about before, since it is much more competitive, authority is absolutely king. So prospects have hopped on more sales calls than ever, and AI makes it harder to determine like what's real out there. Everyone sounds the same, use the same scripts. It's all the basic things all over again, like we just talked about. The authority is the only thing that really separates you. When you have it, prospects listen, they trust you, and they buy. When you don't have it, you're just another salesperson that they're just hopping on the phone with. The big thing you really need to get into your mind is you cannot, especially in this day and age, fall into the same bucket of every other salesperson. Selling to identity, having authority. These are ways that we break out of those buckets. We actually can keep frame and have real conversations. If you're able to do that, you're going to be able to close at a very high level. Now, how do we have more authority on our sales calls? So number 1 is just going to be visual authority. I know your mom told you, hey, don't judge books by their cover, but everyone judges a book by its cover. Okay, you need to have a pretty decent cover. So it depends on what exactly you're selling, but you want to dress at least one level above your prospect's attire. Okay, and this is domain specific. If you're selling fitness, you can wear fitness attire. Okay, if you're selling investments, you probably need to put on a collared shirt. So get a ring light. Okay, like I have some 2 box lights here. Actually make sure your face is lit up. Okay, don't look like, again, you're in the dark place. Don't look like you're selling out of your mom's basement. So get a mic. Actually sound good. Actually have the audio quality that sounds like a professional. You need to be a professional if you are going to be an authority. You cannot look like you're selling out of your mom's basement. And then your background matters. You want to have something like a book, a clean office, like something specific. And again, because naturally people don't want to give money to people who they assume is broke, they assume is selling out of their mom's basement. Just have something. It doesn't need to be extravagant, but like a bookshelf, something behind you. Make it actually look like you're a person who has an office. office. Make it look like you're a person that is respectable. Even if, like, for example, when I first started selling, I was selling out of a 300 square foot studio apartment, which, you know, my girlfriend was living with me at the time, and she had to stay on the bed at any times that I was taking sales calls, and I would corner off like half the area just so I can have a decent background. Okay. So again, I just made sure it wasn't looking like I was selling on my mom's basement. Now I have my own office here now. I have my own apartment that I work out of now. But if you're not at that point, just make sure you're cornering something off. It looks professional, and you can at least put something in your background so you don't look like, you know, an amateur, because people do not think amateurs are authorities, believe it or not. So what's the layer 2? Now that we look the part, we need to actually sound the part. So how do we actually have behavioral authority? This is your voice. This is your confidence. How are you coming across? Very first and foremost, you need to speak from your diaphragm. You need to speak with authority. If you're speaking on the top end of your throat and you're sounding a little light, you're sounding a little unsure of yourself, people will not view you as an authority. So this needs to be a slightly deeper tone. You should feel the vocal vibrations in your throat, not in your nose. So you need to be speaking from your diaphragm. It's going to come across like you're a lot more authoritative, just like I'm doing in this video. Again, if I'm showing you that I am authoritative by how I speak, how I talk, my background, I'm going to come across in your brain as more authoritative. You're not even consciously thinking about it, just like your prospects are not consciously thinking about it. But authority is really a tripwire in your brain that will make people comply. They'll make people go along with whatever it is that you're saying. So authority is a shortcut. And one way to have more authority is just to sound authoritative. Okay, so control the pace. If the prospect speeds up, you do not speed up to meet them. The person who controls the pace controls the conversation. If you allow somebody to speed you up, you will fall into the frame. So again, make sure you're controlling the pace. Now, you don't want to sound like a snail, just talking very slow throughout the entire conversation. You're going to sound a little bit retarded, but you need to have a good medium pace, not too fast, not too slow. That way you can speed up if you need to, slow down if you need to emphasize certain words. But what you do not need to do is allow anyone else to shift the speed of which you are speaking. If you allow somebody to shift the speed which you are speaking, again, they're more likely to control the frame of the conversation. And if you have to understand, the frame of the conversation is how the conversation is going to go. You and the prospect both come in with the frame, how they view the conversation is going to go. And the person with the stronger frame will control the conversation. And the person who controls the conversation is the person that's going to have more authority. You need to be the person who has more authority in these conversations, or you're going to have a hard time. When you say things like, pause instead. Silence is going to be more powerful than a filter. There are some times that you want to sound like you're thinking when you're asking questions. Those are strategic. You can always overuse them though. If you're saying or like or way too much, it comes across like you do not know what you're talking about. That is an issue. You have to be careful of the words that are coming out of your mouth if you want to sound more authoritative. So next is going to be body language. The more comfortable person is in the conversation, the more confident they're going to come across. Open posture, shoulders back. Reduce fidgeting, lower blink rate, deliberate gestures. Move as if you are underwater. Where the body goes, the mind follows. So if you do what a comfortable person does, you will start to think more comfortably. Your body tells your mind you're not in danger. So this is something that I tell anybody that I work with. If they're having a hard time in sales conversations feeling comfortable, if you're having a hard time feeling comfortable in conversations, this is always going to cut to your authority. Because if you're not comfortable, you don't come across as confident. And if you're not confident, what you're subconsciously speaking to people is, I'm not confident because I normally don't have good interactions with people. On the other end, if you are confident, you're short-circuiting their brain and saying, oh, everyone treats him well. That is why he is confident. When somebody is confident, again, it's another trigger. Short circuits the brain, just like authority does. They're really intertwined. That allows you to go ahead and get more compliance, get people to come along with you better. So that's why confidence is key. So if you ever have a problem with confidence, what you need to do is you need to slow your body down. You need to tell your body that you're not in danger. You need to get out of fight or flight. So slow your breath, slow your actual language, slow your body. And if you do these things, this will help you be more calm in your mind. Whatever the body does, the mind will follow. On the other end, if you speed up your talking and you start moving really quickly, your brain will start to be more scattered, okay? So if you ever have a problem with this, slow your body down, slow your mind down. This will help. Okay, layer number 3, relational authority. How you challenge, lead, and hold frame. You need composure. You're not collapsing and giving your power away. You're not demeaning, needing the power over them. You're collaborative. So this is how you're carrying yourself in the conversation. Is you're not demeaning. You don't really need to change another person, like just like be on top of them, but you're also not collapsing. How you view the world is unbreakable, but you do not feel compelled to go out and like fix people, right? The people who go out and they feel compelled to like fix people, like, well, I need to give them a piece of my mind. Those people, you know, inherently don't have authority. Why? Because they're reactive. It's not that, oh, I don't change people's minds. It's how I go about changing people's minds. I cannot do it in a reactive way. It always needs to be in a collaborative way where I have a solid way that I'm thinking about things. The way that I view the world is rock solid. And I'm inviting you to see it the same way. Okay. Now, I need to have good arguments of why I see the world the way that I do, whatever it is, when you're talking about changing people's beliefs on sales calls. But can't come up from a place of like, oh, well, I need this person to change. I'm reactive, or I'm seeking rapport from you. If you don't view the world the same way that I do, like I get upset, or it collapses my frame, it collapses my authority, or it collapses the way that I view the world, right? If I truly believe, which I truly do, that if you need to take action, the best time to take action was yesterday. The next best time to take action is today. I am unwavering on that fact. I am not going to be reactive if you don't believe the same. What I am going to do is I'm going to use the techniques, right, in sales to help shift that, but it doesn't come from a reactive place. If you're ever reactive, this collapses your authority. So you need to have certainty and comfortability. These things are linked. If you're certain an outcome is going to happen, you're going to be more comfortable. The more comfortable you come across, the more certain you come across. So you need to change your metric on what's actually winning in a sales conversation. You need to change the metric from did this call close or not to was I the most comfortable person in the conversation or not? And if you are the most comfortable person in the conversation, you're going to have much more authority and you'll close more people overall. So you really need to understand, like, did you actually have a good call or did you not have a good call? And you need to hold frame when prospects push back. If they challenge you, you need to stay relaxed, stay in your pace, stay certain. The moment you speed up, you get defensive, you break composure, you lost the frame and you've lost authority. The way you got to think about this is if you told like Elon Musk, for example, it's like, no, dude, the way that you're building rockets is retarded. Like, would he get super reactive? Like, he doesn't really know who you are. He doesn't really care about your opinions. He want to get super reactive. He's like, well, that would be a weird thing to say to him, right? Like, he knows like how he's doing it, like it is working. He wouldn't be reactive. Maybe Elon Musk is a bad example because he seems like a fairly reactive kind of guy. But you just got to be thinking about this. Authorities don't feel the need to qualify themselves to other people. So if somebody challenges your frame, it's not that you don't shift, or it's not that you don't challenge the frame back. It's that you don't do it in a reactive way. And if you don't do it in a reactive way, people are much more likely to actually fall into your frame. And layer number 4 is the internal authority. Now, in terms of all the layers, the internal authority, how you actually feel on the inside, is the least important. Because if the visual, the behavior, and the relational authority are in place, it does not matter what is going on in your head. But internal authority matters because what's going on inside your head eventually steeps outside. So you need to reject harsh self-judgment. Okay, I'm terrible at objections. Just saying bullshit to yourself. Everything you say to yourself is a form of self-hypnosis. So if you're telling yourself you're shit at sales, right? Like, then, believe it or not, you're probably going to be much more shit at sales if you didn't tell yourself on that. So focus on outcomes, not ego. Shift from worrying about how you're actually perceived to focus on helping the prospect achieve their goals. So this one is really, really key. And this is a thing that I have to break to every single person that I train, is the way that you're actually feeling on the inside actually doesn't matter when it comes down to did you make the sale or did you not make the sale if you do the actions required. I know that this new age woo-woo stuff of like, hey, positive thinking, you're going to create the world. Again, all bullshit. But take that out of it for a second. If you just do the things that a person who is authoritative, if you just say the words, if you come across that way, even if on the inside you're screaming that you are not worth it, you will still get the outcome. We're talking about Elon Musk, for example. Elon Musk, by his actions, okay, is somebody who has at least some level of insecurity. If you do not know, Elon Musk literally faked being really good at like this video game because gamers made fun of him. Like only somebody who has a level of insecurity would do something like that, right? He allows gamers that he has no idea who they are to actually get into his head that he would put energy and focus and like fake and pay people to make him good at this game. Like it's a really weird thing, but he is the richest person in the world. So even though like he's not like, oh, all positive thinking and has no insecurity, what people tell you what you need to do to make money, even though he does not have that, he's the richest person in the world. Why? Because he does the actions regardless of how he feels internally. Even though he might have some insecurity that he is trying to make up for in a number of different ways, he still does the actions, and that's what gives him material success. Now, if you want something outside of material success, you want to feel better on the inside, this is something that you will need to address, but you need to be able to separate the two. You can feel like shit on the inside and do the actions and still get the material success. The material success does not care what you feel in your heart. It only cares if you do the actions. Now, when it comes to you feeling better and you being happier, that's when you're going to need to address the heart, address your spirituality, all that fun stuff. But you need to shift. You need to make a delineation of the two. I see too many people conflating the two, and it is completely ridiculous. So how do we actually make sure that we do fix our insides to go ahead and actually have more authority like on our calls? I would say the number one thing that's really helped me is expanding my responsibility. For example, like take care of someone, help your mom, help your siblings. The more people depending on you, the more conviction you carry on your calls. You can hear it in someone's voice when they have something real that's driving them towards something. So understand something, you making $10, $20, $30,000 per month and you being content with that is a very selfish way to live. And I'm going to be very blunt and very straightforward. It's a very selfish way to live because making $10,000 per month, you are not making enough to truly help the people around you. Making $20,000 per month, you are not making enough to truly help the people around you. You need to have a deeper reason. And when you're first getting into it and all your motivations are purely selfish, like that's fine to a point. You need to get to a point where you spread out like who you're actually responsible for to give you more of a reason to actually make more money. For example, I have a wife, I have a kid, taking care of my mom, taking care of my dad. I have these responsibilities. So when I wake up, and everyone is going to have this, and I just don't want to do shit, I have a number of different reasons that I need to neglect how I actually feel on any given day. And because I have all these reasons that I need to neglect that, I just fucking do the work. I'm making this video for you guys, spitting some fucking hot fire because I just do the work, because the work is required if I'm going to take care of the people that I'm responsible for. If I don't do the things that I know I need to do, then I'm not being the father that I need to be. Now, I'm not saying, hey, just go have some kids, right? Maybe you need to do that, maybe not. Find a good girl first. But the thing is, look around you. Like, who can you actually be responsible for? Who can you actually help? And stop having your goals, your aspirations be so selfish. You can be selfish making 10K per month, 20K per month, but in order to make 50, 60, 70, 100K per month, oftentimes there needs to be a deeper reason. Not all the time. Some people are just fucking sociopaths. And if that's you, regard this advice. I'm just saying that this is something that's really helped me hit those extra layers. It's once I actually started taking responsibility and I started looking at my life and like, hey, I'm living my life very selfishly just because I'm just taking care of myself and just living a good life for myself. I wasn't taking care of my mom, wasn't taking care of my dad, wasn't married at the time. So once I started actually taking on these responsibilities, the actual reasons that I need to make more money increased and my authority on sales calls went out the fucking roof, mate. So the how you do one thing principle, just understand this. The way you approach any task reflects how you approach all tasks. Small habits of excellence or mediocrity create patterns that show up on your calls. Okay. Like, are you punctual? Do you keep your word? Do you maintain organization? Do you speak with precision and casual conversations? The thing is, you do not want to just be authoritative on your fucking sales calls. I am like this, where I am pretty straightforward in everything that I do, no matter where you hit me in life, right? Now, I tend to be a little bit more laid back if it's just casual conversation, but I have strong opinions on sales calls, outside of sales calls. How you do one thing is how you do everything. You can just understand authority is the thing that separates medium to top closers. You need to have authority. So shift number 3, no more fat closers. So why just taking sales calls is keeping you broke? Most closers are fat cat closers. They just sit back, they wait for book calls to hit their calendar, close a few, and they wonder why they're stuck at like 5 to 10K per month. The top 1% treat sales calls like it's a business. They have systems to actually make more money. Believe it or not, you need to talk to much more people than you think you need to talk to if you're going to double, triple, quadruple your sales. Okay. So what you need to do to really make sure you're talking to as many people as possible. Number one, you need to track your data. Okay. What gets measured gets improved. You need to understand what's your sure rate, what's your close rate, what objections are you actually losing the most deals to. If you can't answer these questions right now, you're guessing. And if you're guessing, you're just going to stay fucking broke. Okay. You need to set a 10 to 15 minute a day to track your numbers. If you're too lazy to do it, just pay a VA to do it. You can't be lazy and broke. You got to pick one. So understand the quality of your outcomes comes down to the quality of the questions that you ask. If you're saying, hey, I'm not making enough sales, this is a problem that can't be solved. If you ask yourself, why am I not making enough sales? This is a question that leads to a different solution. And a way that I can really articulate this point, I'll bring it back to Elon Musk. And the reason I keep using Elon Musk is, again, he is somebody who's in the public sphere who is probably the best entrepreneur of our time. And one story that really crystallized in my mind is when he created the rocket that shot up into the air and they caught it. When he first went to the engineers, because he's not the one who's actually making all the shit, right? Like he tells people to do it and then they do it. When he first went to the engineers, he's like, hey, this is what I want, create a plan. And they're like, all right, they created a plan. How long is it going to take? They told him it was going to take 10 years. And what he did, he didn't accept it. He goes, well, that's bullshit. If we had to do it in 6 months, what would that plan look like? So what did he do? He asked a very specific and a much better question. Rather than, hey, how long would this take? They gave him just some basic generic, hey, it would take 10 years. This is all the technology we need. Well, if we had to do it in 6 months, how would we do it? Again, a better question got a better outcome. And they created a different plan. They didn't do it in 6 months. They did it in 8 months. But just because he asked a better question and he held people accountable, it went from 10 years to 8 months. Let's do that with ourselves too, right? Like, why are we not making the sales? If I had to hit 30K per month next month, what is the actual action plans that I would do? What would I actually do to get there? So after we ask ourselves better questions, we're tracking data. Next thing we need to do is we need to make sure we fix our sure rate. Okay. If you see white space on your calendar as a salesperson, you need to hate this with a fiery fucking passion. All white space on my calendar, I fucking hate it. The reason is if I'm not talking to somebody, I am not making money. So your sure rate should be at least 65%. If it's below that, you're leaving thousands on the table each and every month. Example, if you have a 41% sure rate and it should be 70, okay, you're leaving at least $5,000 on the table. You can double what you're making by just fixing your fucking sure rate. Yes, I know you want to practice the objection handling, you want to practice and do the role plays and all this shit. Yes, you need to do that, but it's the boring work. It's the work that nobody else wants to do. That's what will make you a lot of money in sales. So how do we go ahead and do that? Manual call confirmations, actually sending personalized texts to people. Do a little bit of work, okay? Remove automated looking messages. Call every lead before the appointment. Move leads forward on your calendar. If you have a call, let's say it's Monday and they're booked on Friday and you have an open space on Monday, call them up. See if they can talk to you today. If they're more likely to talk to you today, they're more likely to show up. You're more likely to close them. Stop complaining about bad leads. Just control what you can control. Layer number 3, follow up like your life depends on it because your income does depend on it. You're not too good to follow up. Ryan Serhant followed up with 1 lead every single week for 7 years with 0 replies. Finally, he got a response and he made over $1 million in commissions. If you don't know who Ryan Serhant is, he is the owner of a real estate mogul business and he's on like $1 million listings, right? Dude makes tons of fucking money. And he told a story to my sales team a while back about how he followed up with a lead for over 7 years with no communication, no CRMs, sending them a weekly email. And after 7 years, the person got back to him like, oh, I was busy, right? Busy for 7 years. And then he sold 2 apartments to them, both of them multi-million-dollar apartments. He made a couple million in commissions just because he did the boring work of just following up with people and it made him millions of dollars. So if him making millions of dollars each year has this huge fucking business, if following up is not too good for him, it's not too good for you either. Again, you can be broke or you can be lazy or you can actually do the work to make money. Up to you on that one. So how do we actually go out and do it? So this is what you'll typically do if you get somebody who ghosts you, right? Now, depending on the follow-up is going to depend on the situation, but just generally speaking, this is a ghost protocol, right? Day 1, we're calling them. Day 2, we're calling them. We're using humor. Day 3, we're sending memes. We're breaking the pattern. patterns. Day 4, okay, it's like, hey, I tried to get back to you, but didn't hear back. Where should we go from here? Day 7 plus, like every 3 days after that, I'm just going to be following up. And really, I'm going to just be following up with people forever, always. So you can take a look at that. That is what my ghost protocol looks like in a very compact way. So you need to get out of your comfort zone, drop your ego, and just be persistent. You'll make more money being persistent than being timid and passive. Layer number 4, fill up every empty slot. So you need to have unscheduled, scheduled, generating activities. Okay. So if somebody no-shows and you just sit there, you don't just sit there, you hunt in this order of highest intent. So what you need to do is you need to go ahead and move leads forward, pull people that have booked later in the day, like we had talked about before, pull them forward, call current clients 21 days plus in the program and get upsells, renewals, or referrals. Call expired clients, get upsells, renewals, and referrals. Follow up with your no-sale pipeline. Call other closers no sales. Text blasts from leads from Facebook group, Discord, school, call no-shows, sell them on the spot or rebook. Outbound low-ticket buyers, opt-in leads, whatever it is. It depends on what your offer is, but you have to understand that what you need to do is you need to have the mentality of who has my money, okay? So every single week, you need to be thinking who has my money and how can I get more conversations and more sales outside of just my booked calls? This is going to be upsells, follow-ups, referrals, no sales, whatever it is. How can I just talk to more people? Because the more people you talk to, even if you're not good at sales, you will just close more people. And that brings us to layer number 5. Not only do we need to have unscheduled, scheduled activities, we need to have systems and processes for upsells, renewals, and referrals. Okay. If you do not have processes in place for these, then you're not going to make as much money as you need to. So shift number 4, we have the objection prevention system, not objection handling. So why has objection handling become more and more obsolete? Again, traditionally, you're just playing defense after the prospect is already afraid. You're trying to overcome resistance that's already formed, and you create a battle dynamic where you're pressuring someone who is pulling away from you. Even if you win, they'll refund. A lot of the times when it comes to if we're just waiting to the very end of the conversation, we're going to have a much harder time overcoming somebody's beliefs. Because understand, all an objection is a limiting belief that is preventing them from moving forward. Now, the longer that a person holds on to a belief, especially in a conversation, the stronger it's going to be. So if we go 30 minutes and we haven't addressed any of their beliefs in their mind are so much stronger versus if you just address them much earlier. So elite closers address objections 20 minutes before they even appear in the first place. They pre-handle objections during discovery when the prospect isn't defensive. By the time you drop the price, there's nothing left to object to, right? So how do we actually solve this? So here is my 4-step prevention system. So step number 1, we need to have pattern recognition. So during discovery, actually listen to your prospects, believe it or not. So common patterns like decision-making style, investment beliefs, past failures, partner involvement, whatever it is. So early address. So bring up potential objections in casual topic during discovery. Example, walk me through how you typically make big decisions. Do you like to move fast? Or do you like to take your time? What have you actually done before we started talking today? What's prevented you from actually going out and getting hands-on help before? You need to ask these questions about their decision-making process so you can understand it. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So if I want to shift somebody's future behavior, I need to understand their past behavior and address those patterns. People are made up of patterns. Then from there, once I actually understand the actual belief, I want to shift it. So then we have the identity frame. Okay. So you need to show them how their future identity would handle this. For example, you can ask like, hey, most people making $50K per month have already made their decision by this point in the conversation. What questions would help you decide today? Again, you're getting them to actually see from the viewpoint of them being the person who they know they need to be. Then step number 4, we need to have the consequence loop. Okay. You need to paint what happens if they stay in their current pattern. Example, if you spend another 2 weeks thinking about this, where does that leave you? What happens if nothing changes? What are the day-to-day impacts if you stay the person who you have been? Consequent pushes urgency. Shift number 5, real-time energy reading. This is the invisible skill. So what energy reading actually means. So most closers just listen to words. Elite closers, again, we need to understand psychology. We focus on their energy. How are they coming across? Their body language, their tone. So the energy is their tone, pace, body language, hesitation, engagement level. When energy shifts during a call, that's your pre-handle opportunity. This really is going to help you identify objections before they even come up in the first place. Okay, so there are 3 types of energy shifts to watch for. Type number one is the engagement drop. So a prospect goes from engaged and asking questions to quiet and short answers. Usually happens when you hit a pain point or a trigger. Example, you mention the investment and then they suddenly get reserved. What do you actually do when you notice this? It's like, hey, I noticed you got quiet when I mentioned X. What's coming up for you? What's behind that? You need to understand what's actually behind that. What is behind the objection? Type number two, the defensive spike. A prospect suddenly becomes defensive and starts explaining themselves. They start justifying. This means you hit an identity conflict. Example, you ask about past failures and they get defensive about why those didn't work. What do you actually need to do? You need to validate, hey man, I understand where you're coming from. And then you need to redirect. What did you learn from that experience? Well, what if it wasn't what you thought it was? And depending on what it is, we might need to shift that belief. And then type number three, the false agreement. So this will happen oftentimes, like the prospect is agreeing with everything, but their energy doesn't match. They're saying yes, but their tone and body language is saying no. For example, yeah, I definitely want to make more money, but their voice is flat. What to do? Call it out gently. Hey, I hear you saying that, but I'm sensing some hesitation. What's really going on? So you just need to be looking for their tone, their voice, their body language, and shifts in it. And those shifts will give you insight to what they're actually thinking. Okay. And how do we actually develop this skill? So record your calls and watch them back on mute and just observe body language. Practice noticing when your energy shifts during conversations. The more you are aware of your own energy, the better you will be able to read others. This is a muscle and it gets stronger with intentional practice. And just understand, if you're able to actually read people and speak to what is going on in their mind, you're going to have a better time building trust, having authority, and getting beneath the surface. That's what you really need to do to shift people in this day and age. That's why it's super key. So shift 6 is AI sales assistance. So AI is something that obviously is breaking out, and it's something that a lot of people are using, and it's a tool that we can use as sales reps to help us. There's a couple different ways. So here's what AI sales assistants can already do. They can transcribe your calls in real time and suggest questions to ask. They can analyze prospects' response and flag energy shifts. Okay? They can help you pre-handle objections by surfacing similar calls and what worked, and they can generate follow-up messages based on the conversation. They can track patterns across hundreds of sales calls to identify what's working. Now, why is this actually a game changer? So right now, if you're just relying on memory and intuition on calls, AI helps give you a second brain analyzing everything in real time. It's like having a coach whisper in your ear. Now, this is something that can really help you when you're first really getting into it. Ideally, you're getting to a point when you're on sales conversation, you're more in a flow state. You don't have to think too much and you don't need outside influence to help you. But when you are first learning some of these different techniques and skills, because it does take a while to master, AI agent there, maybe on the call or whatever it is, like these can actually help you identify certain things. Now, once you get competent enough, it's like training wheels in a way. If you always need something else to tell you what to say, you're never going to be in the conversation as much as you truly need to be. But they can help you when you're first starting out to be able to identify things. So here are some 3 ways that you can actually use it in the next year or so. This is going to change how most people are doing things. So case number 1 is real-time call coaching. Okay, they listen to the call, they give you actual feedback. Okay, this is what we were talking about before. It's like training wheels. I would say the 2 ones that are much more important are going to be case 2 and case 3, which is going to be able to have pattern recognition at scale. So a big problem that people have is they don't really know what to improve on, and they don't really know how to shift or change things or what they need to focus on. What AI does is it helps actually identify patterns and behaviors and what you actually need to be working on, and actually how do you shift your pre-call process to make sure you're maximizing your sales. Like for example, they can identify what objections you're getting and they can help optimize your process based on the data, not just a gut feel. This can separate 10K closers from 100K per month closers. So this is something that I will do with any actual team that I help, is I will analyze all their sales calls. I'll plug it into AI and I'll get it to analyze everything and really make it feed out to me what the top objections are. That way I can address those objections in the sales process. So I can get videos and I can get things in front of people before they even hop on the calls to eliminate these objections before they're even coming up in the first place. That's number 1. Number 2, as a sales trainer, it also gives me more insight on how I'm going to help the team, what we need to focus on. Now, they might want to focus just on fear objections, but if they're losing 70% of their sales to partner objections, we're just going to focus on partner objections. I don't give a fuck about fear objections because that's where you're losing your money. So for example, let's just say we find out partner objections is the number 1 objection. So what you need to do is you need to have a pre-call process process that addresses partner objections. Either you're sending them videos, testimonials, whatever it is that addresses that specific belief. And you're also working on that objection on your skill set. You're working how you actually handle it on the call. There's two ways to make more money in sales. You improve your skill set, you improve your systems. Do both. Okay, and use data to do both. So use case 3 is hyper-personalized follow-up. Now, this is something I do all the time, already do it, is you get AI to really help draft follow-up message based on specific calls. This really helps shortcut a lot of the stuff that you're already doing. It still does need like a personal human touch just to make it like better, but it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Okay, and if you use these tools right, they're not going to eliminate salespeople. They're going to make the salespeople better at what they do. Okay, and tools that exist today, you have Gong, Chorus, Fireflies, you have Clay for personalized outreach at scales, custom GPTs for drafting follow-ups. Like, we're still early, but expect more of this and more of this to come out in the next year, 2 years, maybe even quicker, right? Once AI starts coding itself and takes over the world, like maybe we don't have 24 months, but I'm banking on that we do. So this is something that's still emerging, but you can use these tools now to just get much better at what you're doing and have much better insight into the data, which makes you much more effective. And that really brings me down to the main point. In the era of AI, it's not that will things change like a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. It's that things are changing at such a high rate now. It's the people who are going to be most adaptable to the space, most adaptable to what's going on, that are going to go ahead and rise to the top. And in order to actually learn these skills, like again, I have one-on-one training that you can work on with me to actually learn these skills. But besides that, it just needs to come down to you need to be adaptable and actually understand human behavior, understand how human beings work, and use AI as a tool to make as many sales as possible. If you found this valuable, leave a comment down below. If not, see you in the next video.